Hello my friends and welcome back. It's Monday. We're gonna survive this week, you and me, and on Friday we're gonna feel very good about ourselves. In today's video you can sum it up with two topics. Russia hits Ukraine with one of the biggest drone and missile attacks this war has ever seen. We're talking about 450 plus drones and about 50 missiles, about over half of which are ballistic. And they did hit some very painful targets for Ukraine. And the second half of the video could be summed up by Ukraine hits back. And they also hit some very painful targets for Russia. And the targets themselves were kind of similar for both sides. Thermal power plants. That was the main goal for both sides. But we're going to begin with the Russian attack against Ukraine. This happened on the 7th of November. And it was massive and it was really painful, and I hate to say this, for the sake of truth, it was also effective. Ukraine destroyed again majority of the drones, but it is never enough, because if some get through, they do pack a punch. Shahed drones are no joke. Out of 458 drones, 300 were Shaheds and 45 missiles, out of which 32 were ballistic. Before we get to the targets that Russia chose on Ukraine, I want to show you a video of a 2-year-old Ukrainian boy who hears the Shahed drones and demonstrates what to do when you hear a Shahed drones through a child's eyes. He already knows. Get your mattress, get your things, get to the corridor. Why the corridor? Well, when the drone and missile attacks are going on, you need at the minimum 2 walls between you and the outside. That's just the basic knowledge about drone attacks. This is the first wall, and the second wall is the outer wall of the apartment. So the hallway is the safest place, and this kid knows it. Gets everything ready to go to sleep, gets his pillow. So yeah, the kids, this generation in Ukraine grows up adapted to this war, adapted to hearing explosions and immediately getting ready your secondary sleeping spot in the hallway. So let's get now to the real results of this attack, and it's bad. It's bad for Ukraine because all state-owned thermal power plants, their electricity production on the 7th of November night after this attack ground to a halt, to absolute net zero. I quote, "All thermal power plants operated by Ukraine's state-owned energy company Kontrэнерgo are down following the largest Russian attack, which targeted all of them," the company announced on November 8th. According to the company, the same thermal power plants that had been restored after the attacks in 2024 were struck again, with multiple Russian drones targeting them each minute overnight on November 8th. Russia also targeted substations, so it's not only electricity producing infrastructure, but also electricity carrying infrastructure, substations, power lines, all of that. Unfortunately, they hit quite many of them. For example, the substations that power Khmelnytsky and Rivne nuclear power plants were targeted in well-planned strikes. All of this resulted in blackouts. I could say power outages, but this implies that the power came back immediately or for some time. It didn't. For some cities, some areas, suburban areas, the power was fully gone for 18 hours. It was full darkness in cities that millions live in. Another result of this outage is water infrastructure. Most of water infrastructure nowadays works with electricity. So if you don't have electricity, the water just doesn't flow through the pipes, because the pipes, the pumps themselves are electric. So for example, this video is from Kharkiv. Next morning, people queuing for waters from the local wells and rivers and anywhere that water comes out to the surface, a natural water place. I don't know how you call them in English, sorry. A well or a river. People just queue there to take the water because the pumps don't work, because there's no electricity. Just to show you how much this hurts the regular people of Ukraine. And next I'm going to show you is Kyiv, the capital, which was plunged totally into darkness. And it was in darkness for almost 24 hours. Well, it was 18 hours, but still, this is the longest Kyiv has been in full blackout. And if you look at the video, it is very bizarre. a city where almost 3 million people live in full darkness. If you see some light, then these small shops here have their own diesel generators. I mean, the diesel also will run out at some point, or they have their own battery packs, big ones for the whole buildings. So some apartment blocks have light for some hours. And the photos, yeah, they creep me out. I mean, I've been in every one of these streets you see on these videos. It is very bizarre and even creepy to see this. It's scary to see this. Blackouts in most districts. The city is in darkness from the Russian strikes. Emergency and planned power outages have been introduced. Many shops, pharmacies, institutions work from generators and other alternative energy sources. Ukrainians are used to this, but this is the biggest blackout they have seen. So if we look at this map, which is just, I mean, these light dots are bigger cities of Europe and Russia, and you can see that Ukraine is in darkness. There are some dots. I mean, of course, not all power generation was knocked out. I mentioned that the state-owned thermal power plants were knocked out. So there is some light in Ukraine, but majority is in darkness, especially if you compare it to Romania, Hungary, Poland, and Russia next to them. So what it really means, how painful is the loss of electricity, even if it's the deficit of 10% over a whole quarter of 3 months. I'll read it to you. Zero generation. Today, electricity production has halted at all state thermal power plants in Ukraine. This crippling blow from Russian attacks means, number one, 12% energy deficit in quarter number 4 in 2025, slashing GDP growth. Number two, millions endure blackouts limited to mere hours or a whole day, fueling food insecurity and $1 billion plus agricultural losses. To make money, to make GDP growth, to just produce anything in any country, it takes electricity. If you don't have that, it's going to hurt your GDP immediately from the seconds it starts. Number three, businesses face skyrocketing costs, threatening jobs for 1 million plus workers. And again, we have an illustration video of Kyiv. You cannot even see how vast of an area this is because majority of it is dark. But this view should be looking like New York at night. I mean, it's Kyiv, it's big city, it should be light, but it's dark. And it pains me to see this very much. So let's see another video, what happens when you don't have electricity. Guys, you and me both, I assume we're all so used to living in societies where water runs hot and cold. There's electricity and there's everything you need. Well, for example, high-speed rail, they run on electricity. These are electric trains. Ukraine has, in some lines, very modern trains. But when there's no electricity, you gotta go back to the old Soviet diesel locomotives, which are now towing these high-speed trains because they don't have any power. Max speed 50 kilometers per hour now. I mean, they still do work, but twice as long it takes to go from point A to point B. And to get the doors open again, you don't have electricity, so you gotta use the manual way, which is harder. This must be the USSR-made Shmelok type locomotive from the 60s to 80s. Max speed about 90 kilometers per hour. They're still the only diesel traction currently used in Albania. These Albanian T669 run even slower than the Ukrainian ones due to deplorable condition of tracks. Just a little information on this old locomotive here. Talking about locomotives, another Russian target was a locomotive repair depot in Hrebinska, Poltava region. Hrebinska is an important railway junction sitting at the crossroads of two major rail lines. Russia is now targeting key transport hubs to cripple Ukraine's logistics and break the spirit of the people. And if you look at this, it doesn't look really good. And these railway repair depots, they are expensive. I mean, diesel locomotives, these very old ones we just saw, transporting the fast-speed electrical train, I mean, they need to be repaired so the train can at least move, they can be towed, but if they cannot be repaired, Russia's trying to collapse the entire civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. Getting to the next target, and yes, there were many targets. This is the newest Ukrainian biomass power plant, built in 2016. So it's one of the most modern power plants in Ukraine. Biomass power plants means it burns biomass, be it any kind of bio-waste, biodegradable waste. Burns these wastes, products from any bio production facility that has any bio-waste. It can be oil, it can be some crops that has gone bad, tomato, whatever it is that is bio, it burns it and makes heat and electricity out of it. Very modern and very green, by the way. Not the paint on the walls, but the idea that it's from renewables. Russia struck it 2 days ago and it's now out of action. Let's get to the silver lining. I don't know if you can call it that in English, but 18 hours later in Kyiv, for example, you can see the moment, the very moment when Ukrainian heroes, and right now I mean the electrical engineers who repair these hits day in and day out, every hour, manage to bring power back to some areas of the city. And this really is a very big moment because, I mean, look at these massive apartment buildings. How many of these apartments have kids in it? Kids that need to go to school, kids that need food, warm food, hot food, kids that need to be warm because it's cold in Kyiv right now, without electricity and central heating. So this moment is a very good moment for people, especially families and kids. They can get hot food again, hot water again, they can get heating back in their apartment. And this, my friends, concludes what Russia hit in Ukraine in their largest terror strike against Ukrainian civilians. My friends, after Ukraine wins the war, most things can be rebuilt, but there are things that are gone forever. Let me guide you through a piece of Ukraine's history that is now lost. Hidden 236 feet beneath the ancient ground of Bakhmut hides a secret, the world's deepest wine cellar. This was the birthplace of art wine, crafted using techniques passed down through generations. Art wine is not just a sparkling wine, it's a rare piece of history. On 24th of February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine, and for a whole year, brave Ukrainian troops defended Bakhmut in the bloodiest battles of the entire war. But in March 2023, Prigozhin with his Wagner group entered the city. The home of art wine fell into the hands of the invaders. Wagner forces did not hide their presence. You can see the officer not believing his eyes. What a treasure they just stumbled upon. Art wine sparkling wine ages for years, and throughout that process, classical music was playing. To the amazement of the occupiers, it was still playing by the time they set their foot into those cellars. You can hear it for yourself. Listen. Not long after that, the leader of the Wagner group, Prigozhin himself, strolls around the cellars admiring the riches of the Ukrainian culture. Prigozhin, in the midst of stealing the bottles, decided to mock the Ukrainian women on Women's Day and wrote a greeting on one of the boxes while his crew was loading the sparkling wine to be taken away. It seemed as if this piece of Ukraine was lost. But it was not so. Just before the city fell, the bravest of men, risking their lives, smuggled out some bottles and they were sent to the US. These last bottles from the cellars of Bakhmut carry the bravery and resilience of the Ukrainian troops who defended the city, some to the very end. Today, in 2025, Ukraine is holding, innovating, creating their own missiles and hitting Russia back. This innovation shows in the Flamingo missile, pink, like the Brut Rosé sparkling wine from art wine. While the Flamingo destroys Russian oil refineries, these last art wine bottles wait for someone who cherishes their story. This is you. You have seen the suffering and resilience of Ukrainian people, so it is only right that you get the chance to own this piece of Ukrainian history, the last of its kind, a sparkling wine that will never exist again.
I am working together with Artur to get you these last bottles, and only you can get the Rehi Flamingo Special Edition. There is even a flamingo sticker on the bottle for you. There is no better gift than this flamingo sparkling wine. With it, you gift a piece of Ukrainian history and resolve. If you are looking for a meaning in a gift, well, here it is. This is the gift to someone you love. Get these very last bottles from Bakhmut at shop.artwine.com/products/flamingo. For now, these bottles cannot leave the safety of the United States, so only US orders are accepted. A once-in-a-lifetime chance to own or gift a piece of history that will never be made again. Slava Ukraini, my friends.
But now, my friends, I'm glad to announce that this next segment can be called Ukraine Hit Back, because they did. They did hit back and they chose their targets wisely. We begin with the Voronezh thermal power plant. Voronezh thermal power plant was also very new in Russia. It was completed 2019. Preliminary analysts indicate 3 missiles hit the newly built energy block of Voronezh thermal power plant 1. 2 struck the boiler building, damaging steam generators and turbines linked to the LM6000 gas modules. Another pierced the roof, likely hitting the turbine hall. The strikes caused a drop in power and heat supply across the city. This was one of the region's most modern power units, finished in 2019. And if you look at the footage, you can see that this is the main boiler room. Majority of thermal power plants all across the world, or at least ex-Soviet countries, look similar. We have similar ones in Estonia, by the way. I've seen them with my own eyes. There's this big square building on top, and inside there's a boiler that is responsible for a big portion of that specific city, which is Voronezh here. And you can see it damaged clearly on this photo. There's also a video, very far away video, where you can only see a little bit of smoke, not more, because it is far away after all. But this has also been geolocated. The video was made from this specific apartment. I always love these geolocations. They're so precise. Somebody just makes a shaky, foggy video from a random apartment building, and people geolocate it so precisely that they know exactly from which apartment. And if you go into the registry of Russian real estate, you can actually find out possibly who made this video. It's crazy. Anyway, geolocation has been done. And let's now go... here you can see where it is on the map, but I also, every time I like to go to Google Maps because it's just such an easy tool to use. You might think, oh wow, it's nothing, it's not military, it's just civilian, but look how close I can go. I can see the details on the pavement if I want to. Yeah, this specific facility was hit. If I zoom out, this is the Voronezh thermal power plant 1. Voronezhskoye Decimate. This here, and I'll zoom out of the city of Voronezh so you can see it's a pretty large city. Now let's travel to Crimea, Gvardeyskoye, which is at the center of Crimea. Gvardeyskoye, right here. This map, if you can recognize it, comes from one of the biggest Russian military analysts, Rybar. Now, he's interesting because his reports conflict with Gerasimov's reports to Putin. So his reports conflict with Kremlin's reports, which is why I like to include him, because it's always good to see both sides and know what the other side thinks. Now, they report a massive strike on their own targets in Crimea. And if Rybar goes out of his way to draw so many lines on a map into Crimea, then Ukraine took this attack very seriously. They sent several drones into the fuel depot in Gvardeyskoye. Another target that Ukraine hits. See, I told Ukraine struck back because, yeah, Ukraine hit many targets in different areas, as did Russia. So, you remember the Tuapse deepwater port or berth, I don't know how you call it in English, but it is for transporting Russian maritime oil shipments. They load it onto the ships through these ports or berths in Tuapse, the Black Sea port. So, Tuapse is in darkness here, but Ukraine struck another one of these berths with a marine drone. You can see the explosion. and presumably it was the West Pier. These areas here, they were struck by Ukrainian marine drones about 2-3 weeks ago. There were magnificent videos about it, and they damaged several tankers also, tankers that were being filled at this very moment. But now they struck again to the West Pier. I mean, this port is very important for Russian export of maritime crude oil, and Ukraine is striking at the Russian wallet, taking away their possibilities to export or making it harder and more expensive. This is why they struck this specific port. Now a little bit of a funny target. It is a substation, so it's not like a massive high value target. I mean, there's hundreds of substations per a big city in Russia and in Ukraine, but if you take them all out, you take out their power grid capacity. But this specific substation is near a very specific facility. We're talking about the Beriev Aviation or Beriev Aircraft Company. The substation, T25 electrical substation, 110, 35, 6 kilowatts, right here. Ukraine struck that substation. But this photo here is from a Yandex satellite image. Yandex is a Russian-owned company. So they have blurred out this specific area in this city. Just a random area. Why they blur it out? Because it's connected to Russian military industrial complex. They don't want people to see what's in here. Well, Google Maps hasn't blurred it out. They deliberately don't do that. So if you go to Yandex in Russia and look at any city and you see any blurred out places, you can immediately find out what the Russian military industrial complex does not want you to hit, because it's blurred out. You go to Google Maps, you see what's there. And what is it? In this specific case, it's the Beriev Aircraft Company, which Ukraine has struck multiple times during the war. Russians have blurred out the site on Yandex Maps, making it easier to identify valuable targets for Ukrainians using Google Maps. See, I told you, Google Maps is a wonderful tool. We also have a video of the T25 substation. It's burning good. But this is not what I want to show you, actually. I want to show you the Beriev Aircraft Company. If you go, this is about 2 days ago, November 8th. This is the Taganrog Air Base that hosts one A-50, one A-100, an A-60, and Antonov 26. Look at these images. This is the T25 substation. This area south of it was the blurred out area, and the airport right here hosts all of these planes. And that was 2 days ago. Now these are very valuable planes, and we see that Yandex has blurred out the Beriev Aircraft Company, which is possibly mending or fixing or maintaining these planes. You get the next lists of attack for Ukraine, and it's as easy as using Google Maps. It's insane. What I'm saying, I'll translate it to you. What I'm saying is there's very valuable aircraft on the runway of the Taganrog Air Base 2 days ago. And very close to it is the Beriev Aircraft Company. You can put 2 and 2 together. They're probably maintaining these planes. These planes perhaps will be there for some time. The outcome, let's burn them. Let's look at a little bit of statistics. We see Ukraine is striking S-300s, S-400s. For example, yesterday in Crimea, amid the targets I showed you already, there was also an S-400 complex. This video comes yesterday from Crimea. This is an S-300 launcher. Well, not anymore. Now it's gone. It's dust, knocked out cold. But how many S-400s has Ukraine knocked out cold? It's a good question. And the answer is a lot. To be exact, 55% of the entire Russian production of S-400s are now gone. Russia's S-400 air defense nightmare. Out of 56 battalions it had before the war, Ukraine has obliterated 31. That's 55% of Putin's best air defense complexes that have been destroyed. Now, the interesting thing is people or military analysts who are not connected to military I'm not saying anything bad about them, but sometimes they say, oh, an S-400 battery was destroyed, and they show one launcher being destroyed. There's a very big difference of air defense battery, air defense battalion, air defense system and launcher. System and launcher can be the same thing, but battery and battalion is a group of many launchers and many systems and many radars. Check it out. Typically organized into batteries, each with 4 to 8 launchers, radars and command vehicles. So if somebody says air defense battery destroyed, they make a mistake, because usually Ukraine doesn't destroy 4 to 8 launchers at the same time. They mean air defense system destroyed or a launcher destroyed. One battery, 4 to 8 launchers. That form battalions, 2 to 3 batteries per battalion. A full regiment usually comprises of 2 battalions. I hope this clears up things a little bit, and next time somebody says that Ukraine knocked out an air defense battery, you can correct them with the correct term, which usually is a system or a launcher. For example, yesterday, an S-400 launcher or a system was destroyed in Crimea. So, Ukraine has destroyed, and this is a very conservative number, these are only visually confirmed hits, 31 battalions, which includes a lot of batteries and even more launchers, as we just found out. Total battalions Russia has right now, or had before the war at least, 56. Destroyed batteries, 31. Cumulative war losses, 55%. My friends, has anyone seen Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, Sergei Lavrov? I haven't, but I also haven't seen Prigozhin for a long time. Well, some people say that Lavrov was spotted making these photos of himself, leaving breadcrumbs of where he might be. I don't know. Do you know? We haven't seen him. Microsoft is still hiring him to make a big breakthrough for the Windows system, if you know what I mean. But we don't really know where he is, and supposedly he's fallen out of favor of the Kremlin after the fiasco with Putin and Trump. Let's take a brief look at how the United States sanctions on Lukoil are working. The two biggest Russian oil exporters, Trump decided to sanction them. How they're actually working. The rest of the world, the free world at least, already has sanctions Russia to oblivion, but now United States joined. Does it really has any effect? And yes, it does. That's the answer for you. It does. From December, the biggest Indian oil refineries who were buying Russian crude are stopping that, maritime crude at least. That creates a massive vacuum on the market, which other oil exporting countries will try to fill. For example, Saudi Arabia's Aramco will sell its flagship Arab Light grade to Asian buyers at a premium of $1 per barrel above the Oman-Dubai average for shipments in December, meaning it will lower its oil prices for the Asian partners, specifically India and China, who were buying a lot of Russian oil, but now some refineries who don't want to fall under United States sanctions, which they don't, because these sanctions do hurt. They have means of hurting your company, and they're ready to do that if you buy Russian oil. So a lot of India's oil refineries are stopping that, and now Saudi Arabia immediately fills in the vacuum. They're increasing production, which is the OPEC's direction. Everybody is increasing production now, and Saudi Arabia is also lowering the price. How this hurts Russia a lot. First of all, they will lose market share. Second of all, they are not getting paid anymore because their oil is sitting on the sea, on the tankers. Nobody's buying it. There are countries who are buying it, but not at the quantity of India and China. As Russian oil exports to India collapse, Saudi Arabia is jumping in to fill the gap. Indian refineries that buy 65% of Russian oil imports stopped all purchases as of December, and Saudi Arabia cut oil prices to attract Indian buyers. Russian oil revenue is in free fall. Yes, this is how it is. Anytime there's a vacuum in the oil market, everybody scrambles to fill it. They will lower prices, so they will be the one who is being bought from, and then they can hike the prices if they want to. Right now, the only loser here is Russia. Everybody else wins because India will get cheaper price from elsewhere. Saudi Arabia will get a bigger market share. So yeah, it's a Russian loss. Now, my friends, let's talk about Pokrovsk. Everybody talking about it. It is the main area of focus for both Ukraine and Russia, and the majority of their capabilities are around that city. I don't want to dwell on maps for too long because in Pokrovsk it's very difficult to do anything with maps. This map specifically is not connected to the truth at all. I'll draw my own lines here. Ignore what you see on this map right now. The realistic area of Russian control would be something like this. But again, we have seen Ukrainians today, yesterday, in these areas, in the urbanized area of Pokrovsk, just to illustrate to you that this is not a certain fixed frontline battle in Pokrovsk. It's very fluid. So fluid, you cannot almost draw any lines on this map. What we know from yesterday is that meat processing plant, this plant right here and these buildings right here are under Russian control. There were Russian units 2 days ago in this area. They have not been destroyed. And the goal is possibly to cut this highway here and to break into the village of Rivne. So I'm drawing too much, man. It's a lot of fun. But Rivne. The bigger goal to surround Mirnogorod and cut it off from Pokrovsk. Overall, Russians are present in about 80% of Pokrovsk. Like I drew this line here, but it doesn't mean that this is the line between Ukrainian and Russian units. No, it's not. There are Ukrainians present in this area and there are Russians present northward of this railway line. This is the railway line here. I'm not going to dwell on this map any longer because it will just confuse people and it's not the truth. I'll go again to Rybar, the Russian military blogger, why I'm going to him? I just want to illustrate to you, first of all, why I'm going to him. Well, because Gerasimov, almost 3 weeks now ago, reported to Putin directly. The highest military person in Russian military reported to Putin that Pokrovsk is surrounded. Now we take the biggest Russian military blogger, which is Rybar, 2 days ago, showing this map. That Pokrovsk is not surrounded, that Russians have not yet connected forces northwest of Pokrovsk and Mirnogorod, and that this pocket is still open. A Russian military blogger conflicting very strongly with the highest Russian military leader, Gerasimov. This is why I'm going to him, because I like this conflict. And what Rybar is saying, that the situation is very fluid, as I said right now, fighting is happening almost in the entire urbanized area of Pokrovsk, mostly to the northern area. But Ukrainian troops have infiltrated behind Russian zero line, and Russian troops have infiltrated behind the Ukrainian zero line in Pokrovsk. I'll also bring you the Western analysts, the Institute for the Study of War. They report that Russian forces have temporarily slowed their offensive operations toward Pokrovsk, though analysts caution this pause is likely brief. It is, yeah. Russians have taken a very brief 1 to 2 day operational pause. They're gathering reinforcements. They will strike again because they must surround Pokrovsk. I'm saying this because, first of all, this is a political order. Second of all, this has already been reported to Putin many weeks ago that this is the reality, and it still is not. If this will not happen, generals' heads will fall. So they must surround Pokrovsk, or there will be very big consequences in the Russian hierarchy. So you can tell the Russian assault have slowed down a bit for 2 days. You already know it's going to go on tomorrow, after tomorrow, or next week. It's going to continue with the same ferocity. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces have partially restored key logistic routes north of Pokrovsk, successfully resupplying ammunition and stabilizing several defense sectors. ISW notes that in recent days, the tempo of Russian attacks has decreased as enemy forces await reinforcements, while reinforcing their own defenses and expanding logistic support south of the city. Now I want to illustrate, so we are on the same page, how contested Pokrovsk really is. This is the urbanized area, this is the railway station in between the railway, and about 3 days ago we saw the 425th Assault Regiment do this flag shenanigans. They drove almost through the entire city, entire supposedly Russian-controlled areas and through the supposedly Ukrainian-controlled areas. Just to illustrate to you how contested, where the units are. Different houses have different units in the cellars of these houses. Different streets are controlled by different units on different armies. They started north of Pokrovsk, they crossed the railway line at the center of Pokrovsk, and then they hoisted their flag on the city council building, that was 3 days ago, which is almost in South Pokrovsk, which is supposedly already 2 weeks under strong Russian control. But it's not the case. It's also not under Ukrainian control. Each street and house can be under different control in each different day or even an hour. There is no solid front line, controlled front line in this city. It's a very specific battle in this war. So if you see any kind of map like this, I showed you this map before also, take it with a grain of salt. This map doesn't give you any real idea of where the units are. If you see any maps on Pokrovsk, actually take it with a grain of salt. And now I want to give you a bit of perspective what Pokrovsk is. It gets high international attention and people are over-dramatizing the loss of Pokrovsk. Well, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine has now been underway for almost exactly as long as the Great Patriotic War against Germany and the Second World War for the rest civilized countries for us. During World War II, the Russians advanced 2,500 kilometers from Stalingrad to Berlin. In current war, Putin's army has advanced 41 kilometers. I'll try to translate what's about 15 to 20 miles from Donetsk to Pokrovsk. Check this out. So yeah, I mean, the loss of Pokrovsk is bad. It's painful. But you have to look at the big picture here, which means that Russia is exhausting their entire offensive capability on this city. Ukraine knows this, and they are taking that manpower. They are taking those artillery systems they destroy. They are grinding down the Russians. When Pokrovsk falls, Russia will need an operational pause. I want to end this video with a funny positive note, my friends, and I bring to you the Russian frontline sheep. It has a shrapnel vest around it. It has a water bottle on the belly if it gets thirsty. Of course, it doesn't want to go to the front lines like most of Russian soldiers, but it's dragged there like most of Russian soldiers. So yeah, let's all put an F to the chat for the frontline sheep of Russia. I hope this ship survives, man. I do hope. Thank you for watching, my friends. Christmas is coming up and the holiday season. Do you want to toast with your friends? The best way to do that is with art wine straight from Bakhmut, rescued from Bakhmut. The link is in the description below. Go and get it. I mean, they will never make that wine again. So it's your way to show what you stand for and to open it with your family and friends. Until my next video, my friends, which will be on Wednesday, be sure to be back. Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.